Okay, so this is going to be me signing off on this very, very long series of videos on the Bay City Rollers. Um, why am I signing off? Well, first of all, I should have probably signed off a long time ago. So many of you can applaud. Um, it has to do with, I've collected enough information, I've read enough, and this is thanks to all of the people like in the fan community that shared so much information with me. I mean, it's really been incredible. I didn't even know really about this book, and then thanks to being involved in a few groups, managed to get a copy of it. Now, um, people were when I posted a picture of it, people were asking how can you get this book, and these are limited runs and they come along every once in a while. So I think if you're in the Bay City Rollers Army group, keep an eye out, and you may be able to get a copy. Now, it is not the largest book. I think it's about a solid 100 pages of reading, and it covers Eric's childhood right up until when I guess when Nobby leaves the Bay City Rollers, and I think perhaps a lot of people want the whole, like, when the Bay City Rollers became famous. Who knows? Maybe there'll be another part two to this at some point in time. But I loved it, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So um, that was kind of like the exclamation point for me. Along with all of the other information, like I did a book review before. That book helped tremendously. Um, and some of the stuff that was sent out to the fan club quite some time ago, written by Eric, answered a lot of my questions, confirmed some things, and answered a lot of my questions, and it's all been very rewarding to read. Um, you don't want to have a bunch of assumptions and then find out that you're totally wrong about everything. And that's how things started out for me. I thought, oh, am I totally wrong about this group? Right. Um, anyway, I won't dwell on that. But so that's one thing. And so um, there's another thing, and that is I had this brief conversation where I just ended it. But two things that came up about that I think are kind of important is it okay to post something that's negative, right? Which I did recently, and I think that was the first time I really posted something that was negative. And I've always said I'm about the music, so am I a hypocrite, right? Um, but the other thing it was what was it? Oh yes, also about when you post something, is it about the band or is it about you, right? And that is also like I'm open to these criticisms, and I think they're kind of fascinating. But when it starts to become a character assassination, then the person doesn't actually have an argument, because that's why people get to that. But these are good questions, right? So today's video, this final video, is going to be more about me, and I'm going to be discussing my journey, right? And so I'll just put that out there at the front. But I think many other people may have the same journey, so they may relate to this. So that's fine. But the other thing is about the I've done two things that had negative information. One was a news article, which I lambasted. Is that a word? I don't know. And the other one was the review I did the other day, where I got into the legal matters with regards to the Bay City Rollers Limited. And I think there is one thing that if I were to criticize myself about that video. See, when I did the news article, when I talked about the news article, I explained, no sense attacking Les and our memory of Les through this. Whatever happened, and I said, the paper shouldn't have published it. Simple as that. But they will, because there's different levels of standards for news, right? There's tabloids, and then there's like BBC and the CBC, and then everything in between, right? But So that's fine. But with the recent video that I did, I think someone could come along and say, "Oh, well, obviously, um, Eric and Stuart hate each other, and there's a feud and all this other stuff," or maybe like, "Oh, was Stuart like in the background planning and scheming?" And I think anyone that walks away with that, that's my fault because, but we shouldn't walk away with that. And the reason I say that, there's two things, I guess, right? Um, Number one, we don't know why all of that happened. I don't know, right? Um, could be, well, depending on how you look at it, really bad legal advice or really good legal advice. Something as simple as that, right? I don't know. The other thing is, I find it very hard to believe that Stewart would be in the background scheming for all these years as some type of villain, right? And the reason I say that is the warm words everyone has for this man, right? So, number one, I think if someone were to say, well, you hate Woody and you're doing this, I absolutely don't. And the reason I don't, like, I don't know any of these people. I've never met them, right? But everything that has been said about the man is lovely. There's controversy. Controversy comes up. My goodness, like if you knew like some of the other bands that I'm in the fandom of, some of the controversy. I mean, we're talking death threats and everything, man. Like it's so hard to be in a band with people. It's with this book when I was reading it, it's like you really had to want to be in a band to be in a band. Like everything that these guys went through, even in those very early days, right? It's rough. And then you have the personalities and you're working very intimately and close together. You know, like music is an emotional thing. So you're working together on an emotional level for years, you know, and it breaks. It's absolutely going to break. And so when I did that video, what I should have explained was, you know, something's happened there. And I know there are people are very upset. But, you know, that does happen. And, you know, someone said to me recently, you know, the problem with the music business is that there are so few laws to protect the performers and anything. And in some ways, anything goes. And so if you sign a bad contract or if someone, you know, submits paperwork for a legal change and stuff like that, like it's all kind of messy and all over the place. Like bands, I don't know how any of them survive after everything that we've learned, right? So I just wanted to state, you know, I don't, even the people that are upset about it, I don't hear anyone saying negative things personally about Woody. Like that's just my feeling on it. And some of the stuff I've read, it's actually very emotional. Some of the stuff like that was to the fan club and stuff like that. But anyway. So that's a mistake I made, and what I'll do also is I'll put a link to this video on that one, like in the on that video. So that's fine, but it is very interesting that got me thinking about So are these videos about me or are they about the Bay City Rollers? Now the very first one really. I was just so upset that I think this band did not get the credit they deserved. And I had suspicions about why, and I've now after reading so much and seeing Eric's opinion in particular, I think you know I understand why, and I think it was pretty close to what I had assumed. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say was with this thing, like if I were to be getting in a feud, like from one member of a band versus another. First of all, in my very first video, I went through. I didn't spend enough time, I think, on some members of the band, and you know, people can complain about that, but you know, you can always make your own video. But I generally said, you know, with regards to the Classic Five, everyone was crucial to their success, you know, because you had that rhythm section that had existed for quite some time, and then you've got two songwriters going at it, and then you've got a singer who. Didn't seem to require any training like I was. Well, I'm going to be talking about Roller World today as well. And it's part of my journey, right? But just Les's vocals. I think I said before, it's the kind of guy you could put on the radio right away, and everyone I think that was producing for the band realized this. They realized that, and I think it was obvious early on. But I think Nobby had a great voice as well. And let's remember, some of those breakthrough singles, that was his voice originally, right? So they were fortunate to have a few good singers, right? A few great singers. But my point, I want to get back to this. Why wouldn't I do a review, for example, of Woody's music, right? And someone mentioned to me, "Have you heard Woody's music?" And I said, I had come across it in the past, but I was having trouble accessing it, and I couldn't remember what it was. But essentially, what it looks like is that, so I've got some Ian Mitchell stuff, but I listened to it online first, right? Like on YouTube, and then I ordered the vinyl from overseas, right? And Eric's music, I had listened to it maybe a few songs, and at first wasn't really engaged with it, mostly because I wasn't used to using Bandcamp all the time. But it was freely available to listen to a few times, and actually on his website you can just listen to it, I think, as much as you want. Excuse me. But the fact is, Stewart's stuff, I mean, there's like, as far as I can tell, there's like a video that goes through a little bit of each song, but yeah, first of all, it wasn't pulling me in, and then secondly, well, I don't get paid for what I'm doing here, and so I could go and buy each of these albums, and so that may happen in the future. I don't know. But the other thing is that I'm very guitar oriented right now, and that's simply because I'm trying to learn how to play that damn instrument. It's so much harder than I thought. And so Eric's stuff speaks to me, right? And I think with the Ian Mitchell stuff is that I was just kind of curious about this guy who was only there for one album and left, and then I heard a few songs, and I was they were just so different. I was kind of surprised, and so anyway, I ordered the stuff. So that's that. There's no war going on, and I think all five of the the classic five are all great, and everyone contributed in their own ways. Now, so someone would say, "Well, why are you such an Eric fanboy?" Well, I think we just have very similar opinions. I was saying previously that you need, if you want longevity in your band, you have to build that personality, and you have to write your own songs. And he was the one that he also really believed that, and he wanted others, I think. I was reading one thing where I don't think there's any. I think he respects Woody's songwriting, because the only complaint I could see was he would like to see more of it, right? See Woody writing more, and I think the band writing more, perhaps, right? Because he believed in, and I believe in that too, and that's the change that the Beatles really brought in, and then other bands like just added on to that and on to that, right? You have to remember, so many bands prior to that couldn't write songs, and they relied on publishing houses to get songs from there, and standards and covers and all of that other stuff. But things had changed, and you needed and those would be that would be for a vocal group or a band like the Rolling Stones, a blues group. That's great. But this is different. This is popular music, and it's in the 1970s. So, yeah. So there's a few reasons why I love everyone in the band, and I think they all played a role. Why is Eric the guy that I turn to? Well, he's the guy that was pushing for the things that I also would have pushed for. That doesn't mean, I'm right about anything, and I don't believe that I'm right about everything when it comes to the different members of the band, but my assumption was that was the case, and after reading this book, it kind of shines through, and after reading some of the stuff sent to the fan club about his opinion about writing songs, I think thanks, Windows. Yeah, we're just going to pause everything for you, Blaine. Um, but yeah, I think it's confirmed to me that that is the case, and so I agree with that. Other people weren't necessarily concerned, you know. I know that from some of the readings, in some ways, Eric feels that they did not take advantage of a great opportunity, and that is, you know, you're the biggest band in the world. Take advantage of that, right? Now, see, I can disagree with Eric as well, because my feeling on it kind of is they had nobody in their corner. I think everyone can see this at this point in time. The publishing house, I think, was ripping them off. Their manager did not have the music as the main focus of the band. The label didn't seem to have faith in them many times, which is shocking to me when you have like one of the biggest bands on the planet, and they've proven that they can write songs. Just shocking, right? Where was I going with this? But anyway, yeah, we can disagree on that, but I agree entirely, and I can't imagine what everyone in the band went through, as there are these squabbles about are we going to write songs, are we going to cover songs? The label wants us to do a cover, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it must have been an absolute madhouse, and it must have been incredibly challenging. Um, so yeah. So yeah, this is a great book that discusses. You know, he started playing viola at school. I think he was 6 years old or so. I can't imagine. But his one thing he mentioned. Well, Windows just handily deleted half of the video that I just did. So I have to redo it and try to be authentic when I was just relaxing and everything came out so naturally. Oh, not a happy camper. Sorry about that. But anyway, as I was saying, I was just talking about, you know, that Eric had started playing viola, I think, at the age of 6. It discusses that in this book. And, you know, I enjoyed reading all about where he grew up, what his experiences were like there, when he started playing music, the different challenges he had with music, how he came into contact with the Bay City Rollers, who, by the way, this is something, they were one of the biggest bands in Edinburgh at the time, if not the biggest. I'm not sure if they were the biggest, but I mean, they were the band that set the standard for a lot of the music coming out of there at that point in time. And Eric was playing in a band that would sometimes open for them, right? But anyway, yeah, you learn about how he ended up being in the Bay City Rollers, and that's great. And then those early recording sessions where it sounds like in this book that they were actually there for the recording sessions for some of the Martin Coulter stuff before Les joined, right? This was a surprise to me because I know that for the first album, they used for the Martin Coulter stuff session musicians with Les singing for the songs written by Martin Coulter, and the band played on their songs. And I think the songs, I think the rest of the album after the songs that Martin Coulter had written were kind of like a set list of songs that the band had played live, right? But anyway, this book does not get into the first album. It's before that. It's just up until Nobby leaves. But I think the book answers enough questions for me. I don't need to know all of the details about what happened after the Bay City Rollers became famous, because what I was interested in was are my assumptions correct that Eric is kind of trying to drive the band forward and trying to make a point that, you know, we have to have our own personality. We can't rely on outside music. You know, if we want longevity for the band, we're going to have to have our own personality and write our own music and move forward constantly. I mean, that's how pop music works. And anyway, that's it just confirms some things, you know, for me about some assumptions that I had. Um, yeah, I think it answers them very well. So yeah, so I'm going to move on to. I said that I'm making no bones about it. I want to discuss my journey, right? And so that journey, like all my life, I've listened to all their records, and one is a favorite, and then another one becomes a favorite, and all of that, you know. Um, but essentially, what happened was the pandemic came along, and we were locked in our houses, like. And two things came out of that for me. One was drinking too much, because like there was nowhere to go out, and you know you couldn't visit friends and all that other stuff. And I'm not one of those people saying that we shouldn't have locked things down. I mean, here in Ontario, we tried to open up several times, and the hospitals became full within weeks. You know, each time. And so it was just one of those things. Like sometimes I think people can't face reality. The reality was in this country, we do not have the healthcare system to handle this level of an epidemic. Because I hear all these things. Oh, you know, there weren't enough people dying. um, which is kind of a grave kind of thing to say, but statistically, the statistics bear it out, and that is that unless you can scale up your hospital and ER system and all the other stuff really quickly, you're going to be drowned in this stuff. But anyway, so I'm just saying I'm not. But it was awful, but two things came out of it. One was the drink, as some people call it. The other thing was this. Roller World, which I did not have on CD at the time. Now, I had listened to it earlier, and somehow didn't like fall in love with it right away, which is fine. Well, because it's different. The band was at a different stage right there from everything that had happened up to that point. You know, I don't want to dwell on that, but I think it was a very unique time for them, right? But anyway, what started happening was, you know, there wasn't a lot to do. I had run out of video games to play at night. You know, it was getting pretty sad. I think for everyone, it was pretty sad. And you know, the person that I was seeing at the time was stuck overseas, so you know, it was a pretty dismal experience. But I started listening to Roller World on, I think, on like Tidal or something. I don't know. And more and more, I was thinking, this is the band that I thought it was. This is the incredibly talented band. I was really loving Eric's guitar work on there in particular because it's kind of a focus of mine. I mean, like I talk about Jeff Beck all the time. I like guitar. I like good tone guitar. But you know, the thing about guitar is that I find that very few people can do those extended solos and keep me interested. You know, Jeff Beck can do an entire album of solos, but most people can't. And I find mostly it's better to be tasteful with what you're doing, and that's what Eric typically does. Is he's got very tasteful licks that, and I've said he only has to play a few notes, right? And people go crazy. I love hearing the audience, by the way, on this. The Bay City Rollers don't exist without an audience. It's that kind of band, right? Without an audience, the music is completely different. There's a back and forth between the audience and the Bay City Rollers. Probably one of the most exciting back and forths in the history of popular music. Really. That's my feeling on it. But anyway, Roller World had me then going back and listening to all of their stuff in a different way. And the first thing that happened was I was listening to La Belle Jeanette, which is one of my favorite songs of all time by any band. And I was thinking, well, I love the bass line on that song and the bass line on Marlena as well, or Marlena. And I was thinking, I think I could play this. I think I could play this. And that drove me to go out and buy a bass guitar. I bought this guy here, my Fender Jazz Bass. You see that? And because I was also thinking, like, I'm spending most nights just sitting here listening to music or watching TV. Like, I've got to get active. Like, this is getting crazy. And so I started playing bass and I learned those songs. But then what I was finding was I was using tabs, which I'm not keen on at all, to play the bass. And the problem with that is you're not really thinking about the key that you're in. You're not really thinking about the chords that are being played. You're just playing these numbers. And I found that I might be able to play it, but do I understand it? No, right? Excuse me. And so I thought I have to get a guitar because I'll learn the guitar and then I'll be able to see those chords across the bass, and maybe that will make my bass playing better. Well, it hasn't so far, just so you know. But, well, it is nice, though, because when you're recording a song, even if it's a cover, and you learn all the chords ahead of time, as soon as you pick up the bass, you can just do whatever you want, knowing what the chords are, right? You know what you're hitting. Now, James Jamerson is going to add in a whole bunch of chromatic stuff in there that I can't do, but, the man is one of the best of all time. But all I have to do is work with the chords that I'm given, right? And so it's worked out. But that's 100% about me and not about this conversation. The point is, then I did a cover of Eagles Fly, and a lot of people watched that, and I was shocked. And I had no matter how bad the sound quality is, because I didn't know how to produce, and I'm still just producing is such a big job. Oh my god! But I did that, and I was learning more and more Bay City Rollers songs, and so this is a gift to me from the band, that they're providing all these songs that I can learn them and be inspired by, right? And then what happened was there was news of a documentary coming out, and I said, I really hope, because I had no idea what this documentary was supposed to be, I said, I really hope that finally someone's going to do a documentary about this, how great this band was. And that turned out not to be the case, but there was serious subject matter, and that's not something that I'm against at all. But I would certainly love to have some documentary come out, not by anyone related to the band at all, talking about how many songs they wrote themselves, how good they became live after a short period of time, just stuff like that. And we didn't get it, and so that's why I made that first video that I made, because I was so frustrated with how poorly the band gets treated, and there was a heck of a lot of response to that, and some of it was negative. There were some really nasty comments about people that I didn't even know at the time. But anyway, what happened, because of all of the comments that were going on there, is that I met some really great people who provided me with further information about the Bay City Rollers and confirmed a lot of the assumptions that I had. And they provided more and more information, and then I managed to get this book, And so, it's nice to have confirmation on the assumptions you make. You don't, and I'm sure there's things that are absolutely wrong in the first video, whatever. But I feel really comfortable now after putting myself out there, and having criticism and knowing you're going to get criticism. I feel quite confident in the knowledge that I've gained over the last. It's only been a few months. It's crazy. But it's been a great journey from being a child listening to the band, the pandemic, thinking, you know what, I have to get back into music. I used to play piano a long time ago. I need to get back into music. I'll play the bass. It doesn't take that much effort. Wrong. And I love these songs by the Bay City Rollers, so I'm going to play those, and then I post a video, and then I meet all these great people, and I learn more and more about the band. And so that has been my journey, and it's been a very rewarding one. music is such a weird thing because people can just say that certain music is crap or certain people can't play, and we can just get away with it and walk away, right? Whereas it's someone's life. They spend their entire life writing songs or practicing guitar to be good, and it's really too bad. And then musical tastes change, and something that was the biggest thing in the world, everyone suddenly is like, oh, turning their nose up to that, and it's very difficult and hard. I can't imagine what bands go through. I don't know why. It makes me wonder why I'm even trying to write like just one good song. What's the point? But I think it's because people are driven to do it. Certain people are driven to do it. I'm going to mention one thing. So I mentioned before that I really enjoyed this interview with from Japan with Eric, where he talked about. They said where you see yourself in 10 years, and he mentioned Paul McCartney. Not that he wanted to write at Paul McCartney's level, but that Paul McCartney had continued on in writing, and that's where he would see himself being, but also selling lots of music. Now we know for the Rollers that things didn't work out that way, and it's no fault of their level of talent. But I wanted to say something. I saw an interview with Paul McCartney, and the interviewer had said, listen, we did an interview, or someone did an interview with John Lennon asking about songwriting, and he had said, well, no, I'm done. I'm not writing songs anymore. And what do you think about that? And Paul said, well, you have to understand it's work, and so everyone works, and then at some point in time you retire from it. And that's, sorry. And, yeah, Paul was saying that at some point in time you retire from it, and the interviewer asked, "Well, you're still writing songs. Why is that?" And Paul said, "Well, for me, writing songs is a release, so it's something that makes my life better." And I think there's something. So there is that thing that I think that Eric and Paul share, and that is that I think they both. For them, writing a song isn't a chore, it's an absolute need. And I say this because look at all the huge number of songs, right, that Eric has written over the years. And so I think it becomes quite obvious. And it is challenging. I just want to write one good song at some point in time in my life. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, I think I've explained my journey. Was there anything else I wanted to mention before signing off? Absolutely. I don't think there's much more. I appreciate every single member of the band that has written down anything and shared their experiences. I find it really fascinating. It's really kept me busy over the last... another police car. It really has kept me busy over the past several months, and it's made my life so much better. And one other thing is that the reason I'm putting an end to this now is that I've been spending too much time on this and too little time on playing guitar and writing songs. But I'm not saying that it's been a mistake to do this because... I've just noticed that my hat disappeared there. Oh yeah, and part of that is that every time I do anything on here, part of it gets deleted thanks to this great software that I paid for. But anyway, I need to get back to writing music. Yes, that's true. But all of the learning I've done about this band is going to help me, I think, with writing music in the future. And learning guitar. I mean, that's really got to be my focus now. Not so much about, things that are already kind of known and are out there. I mean, this book is published. You don't need me to tell you about it. You can, next time around, buy it. So I think, yeah, that's the end of that. But it was great. I really enjoyed it. And if you don't hate me, please wish me luck in writing a good song at some point in time. Thank you and have a good night.